Hello, this is Rick Marshall with today's devotional thought. The question is, can you pass the Christian life test? Well, do you remember when you got your driver's license? You had two tests. One was a written test that you probably studied for and passed pretty easily, and then came the driver's test. It was a little more important. To me, living the Christian life is a little bit like taking the written test and then the driver's test after that. You see, going to church, beginning to learn about salvation, reading the Bible, learning to pray, worshiping with others, that's more like the written test. The real driving test of the Christian life comes when we get out in the world. And one of the questions on that test for us is, how do we treat people in difficult situations? Do we know how to treat everyone with Christian love? A seminary professor friend told an interesting story about his life. He wasn't a very good kid. He was brought up in a rough home. He gave his teachers a tough time in elementary school. His reputation was known throughout the school. And then he graduated from the 5th grade and was about to go into the 6th grade. He said, you can imagine what my experience was going to be like when the new teacher got my name. He said she called out my name. I sat there with my arms folded, waiting to see what was going to happen. And I was ready to give her a hard time in the class too. And she called out my name. Howard, she said. I like that name. All my students named Howard have been really good students. In fact, I've heard about you, but I don't believe everything I've heard about you. I tell you, Howard wrote later in a book about his life, when his life had turned around, he had become a seminary professor of all things. He said, my life turned around that day when someone believed in me instead of all the bad things about me. She gave me extra assignments. She invited me to come over with other kids, and I learned more about life from my teacher. You see, what a difference between the 5th and 6th grade it made in his life when someone began to challenge him toward that which is good, not toward that which is bad. It kind of reminds me of the wonderful verse in 1 Corinthians 13, which says, love does not think evil, but believes all things, hopes all things. That's how we pass the Christian life test.